Again, Erev Shabbos, everybody. Welcome to Jerry's Parsha Ponderings. We're back to Parsha Ponderings for Parshat Tisa, Parshat Parah. And as I mentioned last week, we are dropping the Corona contemplations as at least most of Israel is vaccinated. The United States recently passed their 50 millionth vaccine. It should continue, and may we never hear the words Corona or COVID again. So let's jump right into it. In this week's Parsha, as we know, the Bnei Yisrael sin with the Egel HaZahav. And I always say when Parshat Parah and Parshat Tisa coincide, there is obviously no coincidence, and that's what we're going to talk about again by hearkening back to the whole idea of Amalek. And in Parshat Zachar and in Parshat Beshalach and on Purim, of course, we dealt with the whole idea of Amalek. What is Amalek? Who is Amalek? And is Amalek a person or people, or is it a concept? That particular notion we did not touch on, but in this week's Parsha, I would like to suggest that the concept of Amalek is really more just that than it is a physical being or group of people. So, we said that the idea of Amalek is coincidence, mikre. And as we said, Ruchi, my wife, always teaches there is no mikre. If you take the letters mikre and rearrange them, you will have rak me Hashem. So what happened in this week's Parsha? So Moshe, we know, goes up to the mountain. They count the 40 days. They miscount. He comes down. It's not the right day. They freak out. And again, that big question comes up. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. Is Hashem with us or not? And again, this is what happened by Maso Meriva. This is the whole idea of Refidim. And the Bnei Yisrael started doubting and realized this is after the Aseret HaDibrot. So when we say, what a high level, and how could we ever reach that level? You realize that human beings are human beings, and people make mistakes. And they made a really big one here. Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu im ayin. And this gave them the opportunity to be influenced by the Erev Rav. What's the Erev Rav? Again, those forces, whether it's a person or an idea, those forces that creep into our minds that make us doubt, that make us say, you know, seeing is believing. And if you say seeing is believing, that means your eyes aren't working correctly, because anybody that looks around the world has to see intelligent design. If they not, they're just kidding themselves. But this is what ultimately happens, and this is how people go, as we say, not that I'm crazy about this term, but off the derech. And so what did they do? Now, here again, you have to see beyond the story of the Ten Commandments with Charlton Heston. You have to really look beyond the physical. They built an Egel HaZahav. An Egel HaZahav. Why an Egel HaZahav? They couldn't get like a totem pole? It wouldn't have been easier? No, because what were they worshiping? The gold. What's gold? Gold is wealth. So they figured if they took their wealth and they turned it into a god, small g, right? That would allow them to come back to Egypt and once again build their paradise on the shores of the Nile, as did the 4/5 that didn't want to leave Egypt and found their graves there. Remember, those people, it's not that they didn't want to leave. They didn't want to leave because they hadn't been slaves already for over a year, and they had started opening up shops, and they started businesses, and this one was a lawyer, and that one was a doctor. There was an accountant firm, Goldberg, and Silverman, you know. So they took their gold and turned it into an avodah zarah. This isn't a coincidence, Rabbi Say, that it was gold. In life, there are many avodah zarahs. You'll notice up on the graphic here, I'm a financial advisor. I work on Wall Street. Figuratively, I started my career physically in Lower Manhattan, right off of Wall Street. But you'll see the bull of Wall Street. This is the bull of Wall Street over here, right? And there is no symbol of wealth and of largesse more than the bull of Wall Street. The bulls are charging, the market's going up, we're making money, and believe me, nothing makes me happier. But we have to also temper that. Why is it that over the years, the term bulls and bears came up? Where did it come from? The bulls, the market's going up. The bears, the markets are going down. I don't know so much about the bears, maybe because it rhymes with bear. The cupboard is bare. I don't know. But the bull of Wall Street, the making of wealth, it's the Egel, Rabbi Say. It's not an accident that became the symbol. It's not an accident. Just like we learned in the Megillah about the 10 sons of Haman and the Nuremberg trials. It took thousands of years for them to realize why those letters were written the way they were in Megillah Esther a couple of thousand years ago. It took until Wall Street for us to realize the symbol of the bull of Wall Street. So yes, we want the bulls to charge. We want our stocks to go up. But let's realize it's not the bull, it's not the Egel, it's HaKadosh Baruch Hu. And sometimes all the largesse makes us forget about Hashem. And as we see, the outcome is never good. What happened? Moshe comes down, he sees them worshiping the Egel, smashes the luchos. Why'd he smash the luchos? Tell you why. We learn that Kedusha cannot exist, and we've said this over the last few weeks numerous times, Kedusha cannot exist where there is Tumah. As a matter of fact, there is nothing more susceptible to Tumah than Kedusha. Remember, Kedoshim Tiyu. Am Yisrael, we're Kodesh, we're holy. There's nothing we could do about it. We could try to shed it, but when we do, we know that nothing sticks to Kedusha as much as Tumah does. Perfect example, this week's Parsha. The Parah Duma. Again, a cow. The Parah Duma makes us clean. Yet, while the person who's sprinkling the ashes of the Parah Duma becomes Tameh. Why? Because Kedusha is so susceptible to Tumah. And when Am Yisrael doesn't act like they should be, nothing is going to be more Tameh. And if we look out in the world without mentioning names, right? You could go to the Biden administration, but I didn't say that, right? You could see tremendous Tumah amongst Am Yisrael. The leaders of J Street and the leaders of the worst anti-Semites today, some of them are Yidden, that hate their own Kedusha. They're self-hating people, and they bring the Tumah on themselves. In every industry you can find, Epstein, I don't even want to talk about it, but you can find some real awful Tumah. The fact that Jeffrey Epstein is the symbol of corruption and filth that doesn't bring Tumah onto the name of Am Yisrael. The Chilul Hashems that have gone on during coronavirus that doesn't bring Tumah on Am Yisrael. When people fake corona tests to get on an airplane, that's Tumah. That's real Tumah. And this is what we're seeing. This is the Egel HaZahab. This is what we're fighting against. The Parah Duma teaches us that if you don't bring in Kedusha, there will be Tumah. And the Tumah creates the greatest Chilul Hashem that there could possibly be. So when we say Hayesh Elokim B'kirbeinu Imayin, that doesn't only mean an atheist. That doesn't only mean somebody that's OTD. That could be someone that looks very frum and acts very frum, and they're Shoym Shabbos and Kashrus and everything. But when you're when you think you could get on a plane with a fake corona test, that means you don't really believe in Ayin Raya and Oizen Shamas. You don't really believe that there's a Kodesh Hayesh Hashem B'Kirbe. We'll get away with it. All right, so man might not see, but Hashem doesn't see? Where's your Yirah Shemayim? Clearly you don't have any. So it's more than, as again, Ruchi, my wife always says, and this is Chachma, you could put a yarmulke and tzitzis on a pig, but it's still treif. You could put a yarmulke and tzitzis on an egel hazav, but it's still an avodah zarah. Doesn't matter how frum you make it look. So we have to remember, Yesh Hashem b'kirbeinu, and what's Yesh? And this is Yesh. I'm quoting one of my Rabbanim, Rabbi Dr. Chaim Presby from Edison, New Jersey, who says, Yesh Hashem b'kirbeinu. He was talking about the filters on the computers. Yeshli filter. What's the filter? Yiras Shamayim. Yesh. Yud Shin. Yesh is also 360, which is the same gematria if you're a gematria person as Shas. Yeshli. Yesh Hashem b'kirbeinu. When we bring Hashem into our lives, Yesh, we have Yirat Shemayim, and that prevents us from being madbik to Tumah. Probably one of the most quoted parts of the Torah that I tend to quote is the time when Moshe goes up after the Egel Hazav and pleads for Am Yisrael that Hashem should forgive them. And he says, Hareini na es kvodecha. This is the answer to Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu emayin. This is the answer to Ayeh Elokeichem. Moshe goes up, Hashem, a lot of esoteric stuff going on here, obviously. Moshe's in the crack of the rock, literally caught between the rock and the hard place. Hashem covers him with his hand, and he says, I will remove my hand, V'ra'ita et achorai, ufanai lo yera'u. And we know the story. He lifts his hand, he sees the back, Kavyochel, and he says, Hashem, Hashem, Kel Rachum V'chanan, Erech Apayim, V'rav Chesed V'yemet, Notzer Chesed La'alafim, Nosei Avon, V'fesha, V'chata, V'nakeh, right, the 13 attributes of justice of Hashem. This is the answer to Hayesh Hashem b'kirbeinu emayin. What's the answer? V'ra'ita et achorai, ufanai lo yera'u. This is the answer to life, Rabbosai. When we're caught between the rock and the hard place, when we're in that min ha-meitzar karatiyah, anani v'merchavya, when we are in that, we don't necessarily see Hashem. Again, the people that suffered through Churban Bayis Sheni, Churban Bayis Rishon, the Holocaust, all the Spanish Inquisition, every possible blood libel, even the ones we're going through right now. Sometimes you don't see Hashem. You don't see him right in front of you, but he's there. And Hashem tells us, V'ra'ita et achorai, after the fact. Whether you're a Holocaust survivor that's living in Eretz Yisrael today, and you see from the ashes rose the phoenix, and not just Stam, a world power, a nuclear superpower, the leaders in corona vaccines in the world. You look back and you go, oh, God, I see what you did there. Does it make up for the lost lives? No. But Hashem had a cheshbon, and we don't understand that cheshbon. After 120 years, when we get up to the Kisei HaKavod, Be'ezrat Hashem, then we'll understand. And even those that can see the good after the fact, there's still always that, where was Hashem? V'ra'ita et achorai ufanai lo yera'u. Could it be that this whole thing was let out on the world so that people could see the brilliance of the minds of HaKadosh Baruch Hu's people. The leader of Pfizer, the leader of Moderna, they're all Jews. The leader of Moderna is Israeli. You're thinking, who knows? Does it make up for the death? Chas v'shalom, of course not. But we have to realize that Hashem has a cheshbon. And we don't see it in this world, but be'ezrat Hashem, we will see it in the next. And when they say, Ayeh Hashem Elokeichem, Hayesh Hashem B'kirbeinu Imayin, the answer is, V'ra'ita ata chorai, ufanai lo yera'u. This is life, Rabbosai. This whole thing, we said last week that Megillat Esther is a proxy for all of life. We don't see Hashem. That's why Hashem's name isn't mentioned in Megillat Esther. And you could blow it off like a Shakespearean play. You could say Esther is like King Richard or King Lear. No! Yeah, I mean, you could. You could do it. And that's everything in life. There's always the out. God always gives us enough rope to hang ourselves. We could always blow it off to science or nature. Again, not that there isn't science and nature. Of course there is. That's all part of how Hashem runs the world. A person that really studies science legitimately will see the intelligent design. But the answer is, just like it was at the time of Esther, just as it was at the time of Bnei Yisrael in the Midbar, we don't see it initially, but after time, and it could be a long time, it could be thousands of years, like in the case of the Aseret B'nai Haman. V'ra'ita et achorai ufanai lo yera'u tein lamachar la Yehudim. We give to the Jews machar, mañana. We realize there's more coming, whether in this world or in the next. Rabbi Say Shabbos Himakar Bracha. And this week's Parsha, in the beginning, we say V'shamru b'nei Yisrael es ha-Shabbos. Right at the beginning, to show how important Shabbos is to our eternal existence. Without Shabbos, there's no Yiddishkeit. You don't believe me? Look at the world. In my mother's family, in my father's family, wherever you look, if the Shabbos goes out the window, the whole thing goes out the window. Shabbos hi makara bracha, ein Yisrael nigalan ela b'schus ha-Shabbos. Beautiful Shabbos this week, Parshat Parah. Focus on the Kedusha and how important it is to fight off the Tumah. Thank you for joining us. Please join us back here next week. Have a wonderful Shabbos, a gitten Shabbos, a gesunde Shabbos, Shabbat Shalom.